Okay, everyone, thanks for signing in today to the webinar. My name is Jason Barris. I'm a Senior VP of our Developer Tools here at Infragistics. With me today is Brian Lagunas, who's our Senior Product Owner on our XAML products and some of the web stuff and a lot of the modern stuff that we're doing today with Angular and React. So he's kind of moving into this web space as well. If you're familiar with Infragistics and what Brian's done over the last maybe 10 years here. And then of course George Abraham has joined us today. He is the senior UX designer and product owner on Indigo Design, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So without further ado, let's jump into Ultimate 19.1. This is officially available for download. We published everything about mid last week, and then yesterday you probably started getting the emails announcing that your downloads are available in the account. So if you haven't gotten 19.1 yet, you can go ahead and do that. It's a pretty awesome release. We're continuing to just add a ton of value across basically every platform, and we'll see some of that today. So I'm going to rifle through some slides fairly quickly, and then you're going to see some demos on what we've shipped. So there's 4 areas that we focused on for this release. We're still working on rounding out all of our Excel support. So starting early last year, we started to invest more in the Excel library, which was already very robust, but we decided based on customer feedback that we needed to add charting to that library so you could render charts inside of an Excel spreadsheet without having Excel in the client. So we did that. This release, we've added Spreadsheet Controls in Angular. We've also added the ability to take or create charts natively in our own XAML spreadsheet control, and that support will continue on this year with the other platforms. So in Angular, we've done some improvements on the grid. We've added a hierarchical grid, like I mentioned, the spreadsheet. So I'll talk about these features. React continues to get investment. We shipped this product last year. We've done a couple releases already this year, and we're going to continue just to push things out as they're ready. So both Angular and React, we're on a continuous delivery mode. So we're essentially pushing out things bi-weekly, minimum bug fixes, sometimes new features, but we have major milestones online that you can go look at it on GitHub, which show the bigger features that are coming out as well. And then, of course, the big news around .NET Core 3, which Microsoft seems to have delayed a little bit. We thought it was going to ship early this year, but it's going to ship later this year. But we're already there with support, .NET Core 3 VS 2019, and Brian's going to touch on that a little bit later on. So let's just get right into this. So spreadsheet and charts and WPF and Windows Forms. Basically what we did is we have this ability now to add Infragistics charts directly into the rich client spreadsheet controls. And why is this cool? So last year, I mentioned we added the ability to dynamically create spreadsheets inside of an Excel library, which is then create a native Excel workbook, add a worksheet, and then add a chart. So you have this native Excel chart object. Well, now we've done the same thing within our own spreadsheet controls. So not only do our spreadsheet controls have all of the capabilities of the Excel library from formatting, functions, table support, etc., we also support now the ability to embed charting right inside the XAML spreadsheet, the Ultra spreadsheet. So this is pretty sweet. Brian's going to demo this and show you the API. And our goal is that over the next couple months, we're going to finish up all this work on spreadsheets and charts and kind of put it to bed for a while and let you guys ruminate on it, give us feedback, and then we'll revisit any new feature requests. But we're pretty much well beyond the 80-20 rule for what we've done here with spreadsheets and charts, and we've done a ton of innovation. It's pretty exciting, and I think when Brian shows the demo, you'll be pretty impressed. The other cool thing is across every platform, and this includes React, this includes Angular, the Excel library is 100% across the board on every platform that we ship now. So this gives you the entire, if not the entire, pretty close to the entire Excel API in a library that you can use to generate workbooks, worksheets, and you can see some of the features here: tables, sorting, grouping, filtering, all the formula support, charting support. So this is pretty exciting. So this means if you're building an Angular app and you have a data grid and you want to export that data with formatting and formulas, etc., to an Excel spreadsheet, you can do that. You can do the same thing in React. Now, you've had a lot of this capability in WPF and Windows Forms for many, many years. I mean, we shipped this Excel library, I think, started back in 2006, 2007, and we've just built on top of it since then. So this is absolutely, if not the most robust, one of the most robust Excel libraries on the market, but it really does allow you now on any platform to do some pretty serious Excel innovation. And then moving along, talking about the Angular spreadsheet control, this is super exciting. We actually had this component in jQuery already, but of course, if you're building an Angular app, you don't want to have a jQuery dependency. So the Angular spreadsheet control is a pure client-side component, and you know, there's no jQuery involved. It's all, we basically have translated the C# control over to TypeScript, and that gives us our Angular component. Right now we're shipping about 25 or 30 features, and you can see it's a lot of the cell alignment, cell manipulation, shape support, selection, formula support. So all the core things you need to do for a spreadsheet we've shipped, and Brian's going to show a couple demos of this as well. But if you've done used any of the spreadsheet in WPF, you'll be blown away by what you can do now in an Angular app. Now, like I said, the goal here is in the next couple of months to really wrap up all the spreadsheet and Excel library work, which means that, you know, around the July-ish time frame, all of the features of the spreadsheet will be implemented and shipped to you, as well as a React version of this spreadsheet control. So if you're doing React, just stay tuned for a couple more months, but this is pretty exciting where we're at today, especially for the Angular developer. Now, the Angular product, we did a major shipment near the end of February. There was so much stuff that we pushed out. I'm going to cover a bunch of that, just show you in the sample browser all the new items that we've published in the last release. And then we just did another release, a 7.2.5 release last week. But the big feature request that we pushed out was a hierarchical grid. So we had a tabular grid when we first shipped the product, then we added a tree grid in a release last November, and now we've added the hierarchical grid. So basically, we've got tabular, tree, hierarchical, and a spreadsheet grid all in Angular now. So if you're doing any kind of Angular stuff and you need data display, we pretty much have you covered. And then even before the webinar, we were talking, our Angular product is so well-rounded now. There's, you know, got to be 80 different controls now. We've got 65 plus chart types, and then, you know, we're continuing to add to this product. So this is a pretty impressive product. We've really put a lot of effort into this, and hopefully you're realizing that benefit as well if you're building Angular apps. Another key highlight in this release is the Excel style filtering. So in previous releases, we've had column filtering in the grid, but we've really upped the UX on our Excel style filter dialog. So this has all the capabilities that you've come to love in the other platforms that we ship, like WPF, Windows Forms, JavaScript, but we've also added some other neat features, like in this drop-down sorting, column pinning, column hiding, column moving, etc., along with all of the very robust Excel-style filtering capability. You can enable or disable any of these features when you're using the Excel-style filter drop-down and column management feature, but this basically really cleans up the grid. For example, there's only one little glyph in the header that you click, and it gives you all of the capabilities for this particular column in the grid based on data type to do the data manipulation or just the column manipulation. I'll show a demo of this pretty sweet feature set. React we're continuing to improve features here. You know, one of the key aspects of any data grid is how do we handle keyboard navigation? How do we handle selection? And so the biggest feature request is I want to have keyboard navigation like Excel. So we've added Excel style keyboard nav. We've added different types of range selection with the mouse, without the mouse. So this allows you to select cells, contiguous and non-contiguous cells, and then do something with them. So for example, we have a sweet demo of selecting cells and it's updating a chart based on that data. So you can create some really nice interactive experience. So these are just fundamental features, and we're going to continue to add those fundamentals to this grid as we improve it. But we call it the fastest grid on the planet. We actually added a pager to this grid for this release, but the grid is a virtualized load-on-demand data grid supporting remote data sources. So the need for the pager UI, you know, to flip from page to page, isn't really necessary because the grid already has like incredible performance and it's already load on demand. But we did add a pager because that's sort of a UX pattern that people are really used to. And so even though it's not necessary from a performance perspective on the grid, it may be necessary for your own UX needs. Another huge control we get a lot of feature requests on is the Geospatial Map. Super impressive set of capabilities. So we are almost near feature parity for what we already ship in WPF in this control. So you have all of the different series types, all of these different types of features like being able to load shape files, having customized templates, customized markers, all of the navigation that you'd expect. And the nice thing is this is super high performance. I was blown away when I first started to test this control just at the performance of it. I mean, being able to load millions of data points into over a geospatial plot in real time is pretty impressive. And what we do with this control is the underlying engine of this is the same engine as the chart. So our data chart already has the ability to do streaming data, real-time high-performance data. It's a super impressive component. And so that underlying engine is the same as the map. All we're doing with the map is we're using geospatial coordinates to plot, and then we have layers on top of it to do things like maps and different map features like Bing, OpenStreet, Esri, etc. So this is a pretty slick control. It gives you complete programmatic control over how you want to display your own data over the map, and I'll show a few sweet demos of that. And then keeping with the charting core, if you recall, in Angular, we shipped the category chart last year, and we did the same thing in React. Well, the category chart is actually a subset of the data chart control, which is where you get the 60, 65 plus different chart types with all these different features. So now on React and Angular, we have every possible chart type you would ever need with all of the features and capabilities that we've had in the other platforms like WPF, Windows Forms, jQuery. So every series type, financial, polar, radial, range, scatter, scatter contours, bubbles, scatter marker series, shape series, all the stacked series, all the area series, all of these are shipping now across React and Angular with all of the interactive features. So not only the ability to do real-time data, real-time rendering, but touch support, callouts, crosshairs, highlighting, all the good stuff, plus trend lines that you've come to expect. So the chart is at parity on every platform now. It is by far the most robust high-performance chart on the market that covers every modern platform. So we're excited to actually finish this up on all of the platforms. So it's not just the category series now, it's all of the other charts, and I'll give a couple examples of that. And then finally, .NET Core 3 support. You know, the benefit of this is just that not only do you get faster applications, but Microsoft is changing how .NET is distributed. There's command line interfaces now, and really what they're doing is pushing out all of the innovation for the .NET framework into .NET Core. So we support this today. We also support Visual Studio 2019, and we're going to continue to work with Microsoft through the next maybe 6 months before they RTM this. One of the big things that Brian will touch on is design time support. So we have some calls with Microsoft next week, and they're going to start talking to us about how design time support is actually changing for all of these new .NET Core 3 assemblies. So pretty exciting stuff with .NET Core 3. And then a couple bonus features. I'm going to let George unmute his phone right now and touch on Indigo Design. So George, go ahead and describe what we've done here for Indigo Design in 19.1.
Sure, Jason. So for Indigo Design, we always had a story from sketch prototypes leading up to code generation in Angular. But Indigo Design on-prem is special because it's the only UX solution on the market which allows you to host your sketch prototypes and also do usability testing with user videos all on a private server. And with that mechanism, you can also like log in with your domain credentials, and that kind of really allows you to securely and privately keep all your assets in one place, and at the same time get the value out of the whole design to evaluation story. And I'll show more about this when we come around to doing the demos.
Okay, thanks, George. And then finally, before we actually jump into some of these demos, we've actually done some cool stuff around performance. So our Angular grid already, we benchmark against all the other grids in the market. We had the fastest performance. So once you are looking at your data in your grid, you know, we measure things like how fast do you scroll right and left, how fast does a cell get focused, how quickly does editing happen, how is the inertia on scrolling, and all that is super important to ensuring that the performance is optimal. The other thing that's important is that during those operations, there's no UX issues. So the thing that befalls every one of our competitors in the market, in Angular specifically, is they have this horrible screen flicker as you scroll. So there's white space and screen flicker when you're scrolling up and down or horizontally in the grid, which is a really bad UX experience. So not only do we focus on the fundamental aspects of simply interacting with the grid, but also the user experience of the grid and ensuring that, you know, when you're scrolling our grid and there's real-time data and there's 100,000 rows and, you know, 300 columns, it's like buttery smooth no matter what. So having a virtualized grid and doing that correctly is what we've really focused on. But at the same time, we've also done some work on different performance scenarios on how we render, how we group, how we scroll. And this chart shows some of those differences, not only in Chrome, but also Internet Explorer 11. So Internet Explorer 11, believe it or not, still has, you know, roughly 10% of the market, I think. But in different pockets of the world, it's like still much higher. So, you know, countries where they're slower to move to modern technology, they have, you know, Windows 7 still or whatever, they're still on IE11. So we've done a lot of work to improve IE11. And the side benefit of that is Chrome actually got faster. So certain operations we've experienced like, you know, hundreds of % of actual improvement in what we've done. So you can see here Chrome when you're running in with no polyfill, so you don't have to worry about supporting legacy browsers. There's massive improvements in performance and rendering, grouping. So when you group records, how quickly does that happen, which is a pure UX issue, really. Scrolling right, scrolling left. So, you know, going down, scrolling right from 238 milliseconds to 44 milliseconds is incredible performance increases. And these metrics were taken, I think, with, I think it was 10,000 rows and 40 columns, something like that. The idea is you want to populate the grid with a lot of DOM elements. So if you just have like, you know, 10 rows and 10 columns, that's not a lot of DOM that's being rendered. So of course, every grid's going to perform really well. Where you really want to test performance is if you have, you know, literally 1,000 cells in a grid, all with different data types, and then you're trying to interact with those cells. I mean, because the amount of DOM that renders is really where the performance falls. So IE11, you might be thinking, yeah, IE11 works fine for me. It's because you have, like, you know, 11 columns, and the visible row count is only, you know, maybe 15 rows. You're going to get good performance all the time, no matter what. So this is really about high performance, high volume data with a lot of pixels rendered on the screen, which is what a lot of you guys are doing in your line of business apps. So we're pretty excited about this. All these performance improvements pushed last week, and we're actually going to do another push in another week or two, and I think we will continue to focus on certain aspects of performance. One of the knocks against Angular, it's like, oh, we use React versus Angular because Angular, you pay somewhat of a performance penalty. We call it the Angular tax because the framework itself needs memory and time to load up, and it takes also some of this time away. But we can improve that in our own product, and of course, Google's improving that with, you know, Angular 7. I think there's just by default, by upgrading to Angular 7, you get like a 10% performance increase. When Angular 8 ships and when Ivy eventually ships, you're going to continue to see performance improvements in Angular. So we think Angular really is a solid platform for the enterprise, and the performance is really there for any type of enterprise app, and it's only getting better. So with that, we're going to jump into demos. So what I want to do first is I want to pass the baton over to Brian, and he's going to show some of the .NET Core stuff, Core 3 stuff. He's going to show some of the Excel stuff, and then after Brian, we'll pass it over to George, who can demo a couple things in Indigo, and then I'll finish it up with some of the React and Angular stuff. So Brian, I am going to set you as the presenter here. Perfect. And you've got, you can share your screen. You're all set.
All right, so I'm going to start off by showing some of the awesome new chart support we added to our spreadsheet. Now I want to point out what you're seeing here is Excel. This is not our product. If you've looked at our IG Outlook sample application that's on GitHub, it looks just like Excel, so I just want to point out this is Microsoft Excel. And what we have here is a very simple spreadsheet. I have some information, some data over here on the left-hand side, and then I have my chart based or populated based on that data. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to close that. And here I have a WPF application running. This is using our new spreadsheet, or not new, but our spreadsheet control that's been improved. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to click this little open button, and the expectation is I'm going to load that basic chart, and we're going to see this great chart here. Well, I didn't. Okay, what's going on? Well, let's stop this application and check out our code. Now, normally when you define a spreadsheet in XAML, you'll just say, hey, I'm adding this spreadsheet to my XAML. I have this button click event. Let's navigate to this. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, I'm opening a file dialog. I'm picking my file, and we're loading a workbook. Okay, well, great. Well, Brian, you just showed me this kick-ass new chart feature. How do I get it? Well, it's pretty freaking easy. So all we're going to do is we're going to right-click. I'm going to manage my NuGet packages for solution, and then I'm just going to search my NuGet packages for wpf.spreadsheet, and we're going to see a new package here called infragistics.wpf.spreadsheet.charts. So I'm just going to add this NuGet package, wait for our dependencies to come in. Shouldn't take but a second. And once that has been added to my project, I have to add just a little chart adapter. So I'll say IG XAM spreadsheet dot chart adapter. And of course, it's going to be pretty easy because it's a spreadsheet chart adapter. I'm going to run the application again, and we're going to load that same spreadsheet. So this is all I had to do in my code to get chart support. And where did it open up? Like I have like 4 monitors. I got to search for this. Oh, there it is. Let me just grab that, drag it over. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to open up my chart, and it's going to load, and we will now see this beautiful chart appear to the right of the data, just like we saw in Excel. And we even have our nice little legend over there. And what's really cool about this is, yes, it does respond to data changes. So if I change the data in the cells, that data change is reflected in the chart. You can see this very bottom line. I don't know if you can see that, this very bottom line. If I'm changing that value in that the chart is updating to reflect that value. You see that? Pretty cool, pretty easy. What's also great about this is, so we support like a number of different types of charts. Like right now we support like 36 different charts: area, bubble, column, combo. The combos are really cool because the combo chart allows you to have multiple charts in one. So in this case, I have a column chart with 2 line charts, right? So if I, change a value, whoops, wrong button. If I change a value here, I don't know, 100, we can see that that column, only that column is modified because that is the data that's bound against that column. Pretty easy, pretty cool. Something else I want to point out about this application is this is a .NET Core 3 application. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click, edit the CS project file, which is something new to .NET Core 3. And I don't know if you've seen a CS project file in a .NET application, but compare that to a .NET Core 3 application, and this is pretty freaking simple, right? So yes, all of our WPF controls are now compatible with .NET Core 3, and they are available now via our NuGet packages, either through the local feed that's created when you install a product, or when you get the NuGet packages from our public NuGet feed, our authenticated public NuGet feed. Okay, so while we're on Spreadsheet, another thing I want to hop into is Angular. I don't know if you guys have been watching my series. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and take the time to point it out. YouTube.com/Brian Lagunas. So any of you who've followed me for any amount of time know I'm a hardcore desktop guy. Let me just stop this. But I am getting into the web. Yes, I am expanding my horizons, and I'm documenting the process. So I have this web series on my YouTube channel called Desktop to Web, where I learn to take desktop skills to the web with Angular. So we're going from WPF, translating those skills to Angular. So now that I'm learning Angular, I am like all in on Angular, and I'm learning all the great stuff that our Angular controls can do, which is pretty freaking cool. And one of those new controls that we just shipped is the spreadsheet. Jason just talked about that. I think he didn't do it justice, because this is amazing. You have Microsoft Excel in your browser without Excel installed on the server or on the client side. I mean, this is freaking insane. It's right here, just in this little web page, right? And it has just about all the features that the WPF version does. So if you're coming from WPF, it's going to be almost the same. So if, for example, I can right-click and say, yeah, I'm going to filter this table by certain values, and I can clear these filters, and I can sort, by colors, which is pretty cool. Or you can sort by values. We have number filters. Or you can just do smallest to largest, largest to smallest. You get the idea. I mean, we have support for formulas. Basically, everything that you would have in the WPF version, you would have here. We do have this awesome sample browser for our Angular component. So if you go to infragistics.com/products/ignite UI Angular, actually the easiest way to get to it is just from the Angular page. So if you go to infragistics.com, go to ignite UI for Angular. Click on this little components button right there. Whoop, not right there. Right there. And it's going to take you down to all the components that we ship in Angular, and just select on a project or on a component that you're interested in, and it's going to take you right to that sample browser for that component. And as you can see here, this is a simple demo. It loads a table up for you. It gets to show off some of the features. You can also choose your own file. Say, for example, I have this little sample file I was playing around with, which is like a balance sheet. It has some tables in it, lots of calculations. It has named ranges in it, so I can select these tables using a named range. Basically, what you would expect in Excel is right here in your browser. Creating new sheets, right-clicking, renaming these sheets, renamed. You get the idea. We have conditional formatting. Actually, I have a better example of conditional formatting on my hard drive here. So I can choose a file. I think it's this test one here. And we have all the conditional formatting you expect, the icons, the colors based. Basically, you can apply any type of conditional format rule that you would in Excel. You can do it here, and it's just like you would expect. I mean, there's really no difference, almost pixel perfect. Feel free to go through here, check out all the great features. I don't have time to cover them all in this short webinar. Maybe I'll do some type of Twitch stream where we build this from scratch and just start playing with all the features. That might be kind of cool. But that's all I got for now. Jason, I'm going to let you take the reins again.
Yeah, that was like, you're right. I mean, the slides, of course, don't give it justice, but it's amazing what you can do in the browser with Excel, with our spreadsheet. It's just so cool.
Yeah, I mean, just little things too, like little stuff. You sit here and play with it and say, yeah, I can hit Alt down arrow, and now I can pick from a combo option. Oh yeah, I'm gonna change that to purple, or you get the idea.
Yep.
Like, it's all the little things, just all the little things that you would expect in Excel are right here at your fingertips in the browser.
There's a lot of delighters in that control, and what we're going to do is what we call a refresh in July. The target is end of June, so it'll probably get to you, the customers online. It will get to you in the first week of July, maybe the last week of June. But we're going to add all the dialogue, so we're calling it the dialogues refresh. So we'll add like the format cell dialog, which is identical to Microsoft Excel, and we'll add the charting capability and a couple other things. So just stay tuned for that, and then this will be wrapped up. I mean, that control will basically be done. So all of the interactive capability that you get in Excel, you'll get in our spreadsheet for Angular and React. And we'll just keep pushing out the capabilities, because there's so much stuff that it's hard to know all of it. So anyway, thanks Brian for that. Now I'm going to pass it over to you, George. I just allowed you to be the presenter, so if you want to do a quick demo, and then I will wrap it up with some of the Angular and React stuff. So George, you're up.
Thanks, Jason. So let's just move on to Indigo.design. For those who are not familiar with Indigo.design, it's our design to code story, which allows designers to continue working with designs inside of Sketch app, which is the app they use, and then developers to be able to generate code based on these designs inside of Visual Studio Code with our Visual Studio Code extension. With the way we do this is, if you're not familiar, is that it is powered by the Indigo Design system, which is available inside of Sketch for designers as design libraries. And once you install those libraries, you have the same components which we make available for you in Ignite UI for Angular. That way, design and development is working with the same tooling. And on our overarching theme, what we allow you to do is start with design inside of Sketch, then allow you to evaluate your designs with usability videos in the cloud, and then generate the code once you are, kind of confident that this is the right design to pursue. The way we are actually doing this connection between design and development is with our Sketch plugin. And the plugin by default allows you to publish your designs from inside of Sketch into our cloud, so that you can send a link to someone who can kind of review your designs, add comments, or even do usability testing in the cloud. With this release, we made it even more easier to create professional looking UIs, and that's the whole purpose behind creating a UI kit, is whatever you end up designing would look professional grade. But we have now extended our capabilities of the plugin to include a theming capability, such that you don't have to waste time, which is what we are really focused on to make you more productive. And with the theming plugin, what it allows you to do is, instead of just having with the default set, you can actually come in and create a new theme which kind of matches your brand. So for example, I have this Indigo theme available here, and let me just edit it to show you what it allows you to do. And from here, you can just adjust both the colors and the typography used as part of this Indigo design system. And the way we do it is that you can just simply select the primary color and the secondary color, and the palettes are automatically generated for you, so that you don't actually have to waste time fine-tuning anything. We have already taken care of that. And the same thing goes with typography. You can change the base font type and then set all the possible font styles we have defined here, and you can just change the font weights of it. And once you're done, you just hit save and apply. And what that allows you to do is, once you click apply, you end up seeing your UI, every single design using the components get updated to this new theme. So you can just see before and after. So this is the one which uses the default one, and this is the one which you see after you apply the Indigo theming applied to this thing. The other main thing we added is the indigo.design on-prem story. And the indigo.design on-prem story is related to our Indigo Design umbrella brand. The only difference is that the on-prem story is the only UX solution out there, which allows you to do both design in Sketch and hosting those Sketch prototypes all on a private server. And on top of that, you can do usability studies with user videos also on this on-prem server. So at any point, all the information you're sharing, it's always secure and private on your cloud. And we have extended the same plugin, the indigo.design plugin. So when you try to, let me just sign out here 1 second. And I say, okay, I want to publish this prototype. And you can see that we have this new option here. So this is the default way you can sign into an Infragistics account. But if you have indigo.design on-prem, you can have your own private server, and then you can sign in with your domain credentials and then publish everything securely. So that is the new big thing we have added, both in the form of theming capabilities for the indigo.design story. And then for the indigo.design on-prem story, we allow you to give you all the prototyping capabilities in the cloud and the usability testing in the cloud, all secure on a private server, which you can configure using the same plugin to publish and create usability studies. So that pretty much summarizes what we have today for indigo.design. And we have some amazing new things coming up in a couple of months, so we'll let you know when that's ready. Jason, back to you.
All right. Thanks, George. Yeah, pretty exciting stuff. This is a very exciting product, Indigo Design. If you haven't used it yet, give it a try. We've got this whole story of helping developers and designers work better together. So there's all of these issues with going from design to actual code, and this product is designed to start to eliminate those problems. So being able to go right from a design to some meaningful code, to do prototyping, to do usability studies. So there's 3 legs to it. We've got the Sketch UI piece with our UI kits and our design system. We've got a cloud service that does all of the usability studies and prototyping. And then we have plugins in Visual Studio Code which allow you to generate Angular code for that. So as George said, stay tuned. We have a big release again coming at the end of June, which we've done a bunch of UX work. We've added some pretty cool new features, and you will see even cooler new features throughout the year in this product. So we are really focused on Indigo Design and helping not only developers deliver code faster, but helping designers enable that handoff to developers better, and then ensure that you don't really write any code unless you're ready. I mean, that's the big thing is a lot of code gets written today that gets thrown out because it hasn't been designed and it hasn't been prototyped. But yeah, thank you, George, for that. And let's take a look at some of the new stuff in Angular and React. So I'm not going to go through every single demo that we have. The nice thing about the sample browsers, which Brian kind of showed you how to get to from the main menu. So essentially, we've got this design development. You can go to Angular, React, JavaScript, whatever you want, and then select a component, and then you jump kind of into the sample browser experience. So in the grid, we added a couple things. I mentioned some of the keyboard navigation and whatnot. I'll just show the paging capability here. So yeah, being able to flip through pages, but keep in mind this grid is designed as a virtualized load-on-demand grid. So there is really no necessity from a performance or load time or anything to actually use a pager if you don't want to. So if you're like, well, I'm going to use a pager because I want the grid to load faster. That's not going to happen. The grid is optimized to load as fast as possible with the fewer amounts of data that are necessary to actually show the end user. And then as you scroll, we go to the data source, be it either a remote data source or a local data source, and we're loading data on demand, either column level or row level. So this is 100% virtualized, and it's optimized for high performance scenarios. So the React pager is more or less if you have a UX preference to use a paging capability, because you really don't need it to actually get that optimal performance out of the grid. So let me jump into the data chart. I mentioned earlier that we have added all of the new series types of the data chart. So for example, if I jump into the range series, the range has an area or a column type, but all the capabilities. So being able to zoom in and out, scroll back and forth, use your keyboard navigation, you have all of these capabilities now in React as you have in other platforms. Here is the scatter area. We have different scale modes, different interpolation modes, and then the ability to change the sort of volume within the chart render. And here this is a magnetic field distribution, which is actually pretty cool. It's a pretty cool demo, and it kind of shows the power of using controls like this. And then things like a bubble series. So here we have bubble, point, spline series, and again, all of the interactivity, all of the capability that you would expect in a modern web chart you get. And if I look at other features like series highlighting, column highlighting, having the ability for different types of markers that we have built into the charts, all of the different trend lines are now built in, so you don't have to build your own trend lines. You can just use the trend lines that we have built in. And of course, these all flow as well from the financial chart at the same time. And then finally, annotations I'll show. We've added these features in the last 12 months. So having callouts, having final value annotations, and then crosshairs just makes it easier to use with the chart. So the IG data chart, IGR data chart, that this is the React version of the data chart. If you're coming from WPF, it's the XAM data chart. The API is identical. It's just optimized for React. So the render and everything we make sure is optimized for the browser and the various browser types. But when you look at this API, if you've been using the data chart for any chart type in WPF, in Windows Forms, in jQuery, it's basically copy-paste, change the control name, and then you will have the exact same capability across every platform with no compromise, with still the ability to load millions of data points in milliseconds, being able to do real-time data feeds along with all of the interactive features that you are accustomed to with the chart. Moving on to the map, like I mentioned, the map is super robust and super high performance. So let me just reload this binding to a CSV file. This is loading millions of data points, and you can see that the scatter plot has all of those dots already rendered by latitude and longitude onto this map, which is being loaded in from, I believe this guy is a shape file, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is being loaded from a shape file. But now that I've hovered in, you can see that the dots are, all of the longitude and latitude are zoomed in or zoomed out based on your level of zoom for the map. So the performance of this is just absolutely incredible. And the samples browser are showing just loading data from different data types. This is a JSON file. That was a CSV file. Here's a different data model. And again, this is showing going from point A to point B based on longitude and latitude. So if you're doing any sort of transportation apps where you do trucking, you do shipping, and you want to show routes and where things need to go, you can display any of this, like an airline chart where flights are going. All of that is coming from custom data that you have. And then based on how you want to render it, we allow you to do that through the API, through the different series types of data that you might need. And then, of course, I mentioned earlier we support Esri shapefiles. Esri has the SHP file format, and it goes along with the DBF that'll have data. But essentially, you set the shapefile source, and then we'll render the map, and then there could be data that is included with that. In this case, it is all of the internet pipes globally. And then as I hover over, you can see the different names and then the different gigabits, and since it's been when it was put into service. So this is all data coming from a shapefile, which is really, really cool. There's millions of shapefiles on the web that you can go and find, and this one has multiple shapefiles. So there is not only the global internet pipes, but also major cities, so longitude and latitude of major cities. So we have an API which allows you to do multiple shapefiles binding to the map all at once as well. And of course, this is another high density. This is, I think, 1 million data points. It might even be more, but essentially we're just loading this over the map to show you the performance. So the pure speed at which all of those data points can actually load and then render out to the map. Here's a proportional series map. These are very common map types that you would need to use to show density of something happening, like a population density, etc. Scatter series, and finally I'll just show the polygon series, which again is just allows you to do highlighting in the map. So you can do this not only with the polygon shapes, you can do it with Esri shape files. All of the map renders can come from Bing, they can come from OpenStreet, they can come from Esri, or actually they can come from Esri shape files, and we're adding Esri tile support in the next couple of sprints. So then that'll round out all of the capabilities that you can get with the map. And then this map as well will end up in Angular. Right now it's only in React, and we're going to ship it in Angular in the July release that I keep referencing as well. And then finally the Excel library. You saw this in React last year, and WPF with all of the data visualization capabilities. So now it's all available in React. So I'll just quickly bring up this demo here where I have a React grid that has some data and some spark lines using the React spark line, and now I'm rendering it directly into a native Excel spark line, which you can see is coming from this data here to actually populate it within this table. So this is a pretty sweet capability now that we've got it across every platform: Angular, React, jQuery, WPF, Windows Forms. So no matter what platform you're building on, you can export from our API to native visualizations in Excel. And of course, Brian showed you plotting those visualizations directly into our own spreadsheet components as well. So that's the React story. Now moving over to Angular, the easy thing to do is just go find all the new little red highlights in the samples browsers, and you can see all of the new things that we've added. So things like row editing, batch editing. I mentioned earlier the Excel style filtering. So here, if I click this drop down, you get a flavor for what this looks like and how it performs. So being able to move columns right and left, being able to pin columns, being able to hide columns, and then of course having the ability to do filtering and the custom filters based all on data type. So now if I go over to the orders column and I do a date filter, I get things like yesterday, this month, last month, and I can get custom dialogues based on that for the type of filter that I want to do. So right now, this is basically a super robust and complete Excel style filtering or filtering for the grid, and you can add as many filter arguments as you want to this. So if you need this level of filtering and filter UI, you can definitely get it. We've improved selection. And then of course the tree grid shipped late last year, but the hierarchical grid is new. So if you're doing any type of hierarchical data, now you get it with the Angular grid. So you can have n number of hierarchies based on your data. It doesn't matter. And this has a load on demand capability. So actually this sample, as I click the down arrow, you can tell that it is basically getting data from that remote data source and loading on demand. The other nice feature is one of the design goals of this product was that every single feature works together no matter what type of grid. So one of the problems we suffered from in our jQuery grid was, for example, if you were doing row-level virtualization, things like grouping did not work very well. So now it doesn't matter. This is a virtualized grid from its core, and all of the features work together. So no matter if it's a hierarchical grid, a tabular grid, or a tree grid, I can have summaries, column moving, column pinning, virtualization, and editing all turned on, and there's no compromise. So every feature works well together, and you get that same level of performance. I opened up one of these samples in StackBlitz just to give you an idea of what this looks like. So it looks like a normal grid. So you've just got your IGX grid columns, and then you're creating row islands, which are defining the children of the hierarchy. Those have a data key, and that key is coming from whatever data you're trying to bind. So this particular grid has several row islands. You can see we've got the artist, and then when I drill down, I've got the artist albums, and it's kind of small just because I wanted to show more of the code. I've got the artist tours, and then I can just go down to the next artist. If I look at the data, you can see here we've got the artist, and then here is tours, and so I've got each tour for this particular artist, and as I scroll down, I've got the albums, and then I've got each album for the particular artist, and then we're going to render this automatically. And then this particular album for this artist has songs, so that will go ahead and display that other hierarchy within the album for the songs that that particular artist has. So super easy to bind data to the hierarchical grid, and it's super easy to configure this hierarchical grid. And again, I can't stress enough that all of these features work together, so it's pretty exciting. Some other things that we've added, a new combo box control. So the combo box has all of the features that you would expect from a column level type experience, where you've got filtering, grouping, being able to add custom values within the combo box, having the ability to do checkboxes in the combo box. And at the same time, we also added an autocomplete drop-down. So this is another style of drop-down. So here, as I start typing, you can see that I'm getting the autocomplete capability for this type of drop-down. So we have different types of drop-downs in the grid that allow you to either embed within a grid cell or use outside of a grid for select options. Also, you can see some other new features here. We've got a divider component, some simpler things, tool tips, overlays, an expansion panel. We added a banner. We've split out the month piece of our date dropdown. So if you just want a month picker, you can just use this as a separate component now. Of course, we have a date picker, a time picker, and a full calendar picker, and then all of these services like CSV, exporting, localization, etc. Another thing that we did in this release for the sample browser was we added the ability to see the different themes right within the sample browser. So if I go back up here to the data grid, and I want to see how the data grid looks with the dark theme, you can see the dark theme for the data grid and all of the features with it for every single sample. So previously to this, it was just the light theme, the default. Now you can see the dark theme. So anyway, with Angular, huge continued investment, tons of new components. The big things for this release, I would say, would be the hierarchical grid to check out, the Excel style filtering across all of the grids, all of the data charts, and then of course, as Brian showed, this incredible spreadsheet control, which is, it's amazing how rich the API is already, and how fast this thing loads. I mean, this is a super impressive component for modern web design. So with that, let me go back to, because we're almost out of time here, let me run back to my slides. Just 2 more slides to go here. I just want to wrap things up. So 19.1, just quick summary, Excel, spreadsheets everywhere, lots of improvements in Angular, continued investment in Angular, a lot of great new features in React. We're continuing to improve the React product. All of our features and every product are 100% based on customer feedback. So the more feedback you give us, the better these products will be for your needs specifically. And then, of course, as Brian touched on, the .NET Core 3 support. And then, of course, I don't want to forget some of the Indigo Design theming plugins, plus the on-prem cloud service, and, of course, the continued performance improvements across Angular. So call to action here. Go ahead and get 19.1 today. If you're a customer, log into your account. If you're just kicking the tires, trying Infragistics, go to the every single page on our website has a download now button, so you'll get it that way. The blogs have all kinds of great details. So we have like 5 or 6 what's new blogs, and they go into the details of each platform. Send us your feedback, either myself, Brian, George, or sales. If you want to talk to a salesperson to just start buying licenses immediately, or if you have a question about an upgrade or about where to get your stuff, just shoot sales an email. Or we have a chat. You can actually just do a sales chat. Just go to our website and the chat pops up automatically. And like I mentioned, we have another release coming late June, early July, where you're going to see a bunch of stuff in Indigo Design, a bunch of stuff in Angular, a bunch of stuff in React, a bunch of stuff in WPF, and just more things coming in 2019. We really like this new approach that modern web gives us with continuous delivery. So we're constantly delivering value based on your feedback. So please give us your feedback. It goes right back into the product, and you don't have to wait 6 months, 8 months, like you did years ago for a big release. You might get that feature literally within 2 weeks. That's how continuous delivery works with us. We're pushing out. We have 2-week sprints. We're testing. We have automation, and then we push out releases either with bug fixes or with new features as needed. And it's up to you as to which one you want. The nice thing about NPM is you can go to npmjs.com, look up Ignite UI for Angular, Ignite UI for React. You can pick a specific version that you want. You can stick with that version, or you can just always do the latest version. So with that, we'll stay online for a few more minutes and answer questions. But we want to thank everyone for watching this webinar today, and hopefully you get a chance to grab 19.1, and we're excited for you to start implementing it to give your customers all that value. So thanks to Brian and George and Summer for being online for the webinar, and I want to thank everyone for attending today. Thank you.